this is Gilgamesh, and I want to talk about this movie, Weapons. It's a really extremely effective movie from Zach Cregger. This is the main cast, and everybody's fantastic in the movie. I'm going to break this movie down to its parts. The trailer, what you see in the trailer beginning, that is the beginning of the movie, and where the girl narrates saying at 2:17 in the morning, 17 kids from this one class got up and left home. And the part where the movie begins is where they're all meeting at the school to talk about what happened. That's where the movie begins. Okay. And Zach Cregger's talked about that this movie has a lot to do with these characters are all flawed. There's nobody perfect in the movie. Everybody has their issues. Like, Julie Gardner's actually really good in this movie. She plays Justine, and she doesn't acknowledge that she has a drinking problem. You can see it in the movie. She's an alcoholic. Josh Brolin's sort of a controlling father who can't bring himself until, he has a dream sequence to admit that he wishes he told his son he loved him. Benedict Wong's character, Andrew, who's Marcus, he's the principal. He sort of like wants to everybody to feel comfortable and not be, hurt each other. And James is a drug addict. And Ashton here, Abrams, he's great. And then you have Paul. Paul's a recovering alcoholic, and he's kind of an a-hole towards his wife, Donna, who comes home and realizes he cheated on her. And there's his father-in-law, played by Toby Hess, who's the chief of police. And then you have, Alex Lilly and his family. This is told from six perspectives. Justine, Archer, Paul, Ashton, Marcus, and then Alex. And, the director has, Zach Cregger has talked about that he grew up in an alcoholic family, and there's also the whole idea, you see it twice in the movie, about parasite. What's a parasite? Something that needs a host to survive. He has to feed off someone else, like a tapeworm. They bring that up, and then there's this bacterial parasite you see footage of, where it takes over the host and makes the host do whatever it wants. This is a real thing. It's actually quite disgusting. But it plays into the whole movie that, especially when you get to to Alex, is that his home life is not great. Either is his school. He's bullied in school. At home, his parents are abusive towards him, in the fact that they're kind of like neglectful. They don't seem really, so he doesn't really tell them that school sucks. And then there's Gladys Lilly, who's supposed to be Alex's great aunt. And she represents an actual parasite, what a parasite is. It needs others to survive. And that does come up in the movie a couple, especially at one point with her and Alex. I'm just giving you, before I get into this movie, so you understand sort of what we're dealing with in this movie. And give Alex Cregger great credit. He took his time waiting to do this movie, because originally, from what I understand, Netflix was going to put this movie out, but they wanted Pedro Pascal, and he insisted on Josh Brolin playing Archer, so he waited, because I guess Josh Brolin was busy with something else, and Josh is also an executive producer on the film, so Netflix eventually gave up, and he went to New Line Cinema, who were willing to wait. Josh Brolin became available, he came on, became executive producer. he really wanted to do this movie, and thank God, because I have no problem with Pedro Pascal, but he's oversaturated, and he's got like 3 movies out, and so Josh Brolin's also a better actor than him, and he's a father unlike Pedro, so it makes sense to have a man who's a father play a father. Yeah, and it's broken up in 6 chapters. I mean, you have the beginning narration with, and it's a mystery. It's a horror movie, it's a drama, it's a mystery. It is, particularly at the end of the film, is very gory, but it also will I'll get to that, it'll make you laugh, because it is, and there's scenes where the humor is there. It's got very funny scenes, especially one involving Josh Brolin, Archer, where he has a dream where he follows his son back to his home, and then he's talking to his son Matthew, admits that he wishes he told him he loved him, and then he says his name, and then all of a sudden you see someone else's face, and that turns out to be Gladys. And he wakes up, and at first he goes, "What the fuck was that?" The audience starts laughing because that's actually funny. Now, and each one of them, it's from their perspective. So the camera follows Justine and what's going on with her, especially after you get to the school where the parents and Josh Brolin want her to tell them what's going on, and he, like all the parents, think she had something to do with the kids going missing with no proof. And it's Ed even brings this up to him. We've looked into it. Your kids all left home on their own. No one forced them to leave. We have found no proof that Justine's involved in this. But it goes back to the school. There's something about this. He doesn't understand what's going on, but he thinks she has an answer, and she really doesn't know anything. She's in the dark as much as everybody else, but you don't know this. And so, yeah, and her, and she is an alcoholic, and he brings that up, that she lost a job as a teacher because she had an affair with a staff member, which violates the rules. Then there's and Marcus brings this up, the principal, to her. When she wants to talk to Alex, he refuses to let her because she makes it about herself. She wants to feel better. She's not thinking about Alex. It's not that she doesn't care about the kid. She clearly cares, but she crosses lines, like taking hugging a kid, which you're not supposed to, and also the whole giving a kid a ride home. That violates the rules. And she explains, I didn't want the girl missed her bus, and so she, what you're supposed to do is call the parent and tell the parent, hey, your child missed the bus. Can you come and get them? You're not supposed to do it yourself. So that's her problem. She cares a lot, but at the same time, she has a drinking problem. She's been arrested for it, and this is what Archer brings up. And he's like a very controlling person. It's obvious their son, Matt Nissen, has kind of fractured him and his wife's relationship because he's sleeping in his son's bed. And he's so focused that he, doesn't, he ends up going to his neighbor, to another parent, and ask them if you can see there. And that, by the way, is Sarah Paxton, who happens to be Zach's wife. And she in the movie is married to Justin Long. Yes, Justin Long's in this movie. And people are like, whoa, it's Justin Long. Yeah, and he eventually sees the footage, and he realizes he marks on the map where which way his son ran, and then they intersect right here. And, well, essentially, he, and his, Justin Long's wife's not happy with that because she doesn't feel comfortable in him. So they contact the police, and a lawyer shows up and says, hey, he's not the only parent, that is missing a kid. This is after, we get to, after Justine meets with, Paul, who is a recovering alcoholic. His wife brings that up, go to a meeting, don't miss it. He goes to a bar, meets with Justine because she sent him a text. And then he wakes up in her place, in her bed, and it's clear what happened. Yeah, without even think about it that they slept together. And he's, and obviously he'd been drinking. So, yeah, that comes back to bite him in the ass. And he goes back to work, and of course, he comes in as his boss, Ed, who's also his father-in-law, played by Toby Hess, and he's great in the movie. Is talking to, I think it's a lawyer, who's bringing up about Archer going and harassing his family and everything, and bringing up that he's not the only one that's missing a kid. It's that whole idea that you don't want to make people uncomfortable, talk about your feelings. That's what they bring up at with the parents getting taught, the school and everything, and the town coming together, and each one's broken up, like I said, by Justine. Then we get Archer, then we get Paul, and each one ends at a point. And with with Justine, it ends with I'm trying to remember exactly where it ends at a point. Then we get to Archer, who's trying to figure out what happened to his kid. Then he goes to confront Justine at the gas station. All of a sudden, she looks over and sees Marcus running towards her, and he's got blood all over his. Looks crazy. He's basically targeting her, trying to kill her. We don't know why. And then as that scene, we cut away and we go, to Paul. And Paul, it's, we see his perspective, and then he sees, gets to where it's obvious he slept with Justine. He's back at work, and then he sees he sees James, who's trying to break into a business because he's a drug addict, and then he basically gets poked in the finger. He freaks out, knocks him out, and then after that, he, basically Boss says, well, if nothing else, he doesn't come in and complain, you'll basically be fine. The video will be over. Footage will get recorded over, but if he does show up, you're in trouble. Then we go to James, and we see that, he's a drug addict living in the woods, and basically he's lying to, I guess, his sister or whatever, saying that he found a job. This is what people like this do. In a way, James is also kind of a parasite in the fact that he feeds off other people. He needs to steal, feed his habit. This is what, the idea of the parasite that comes up in the movie. And he gets confronted, chased and everything, and then we come back after he's been woken up, and then he's let go because the cop realized he assaulted him. He doesn't want to get in trouble. He lets him go, and then he heads back. He's trying to, he breaks into a car. Gets into a car, that door open. He steals some kid's backpack. It's probably a girl. I think it's a girl's backpack, and he takes a headset to a pawn shop to try to get some money. Guy doesn't want it, so then he eventually, because he needs to feed either he's a meth head or he's a crackhead, because he's using a crack pipe in the movie. And and then he ends up at Alex's house, and he breaks in and everything, and he steals a bunch of silver, and he sees in the basement all these kids, and they turn, and then he freaks out. He goes upstairs. He's got the silver, and then Alex's parents get up off the couch. They come at him. He gets out. He sells the silverware off at the pawn shop. Gets like $100, and then he notices, calls the police. And after he smokes some crack, I think it is. Like I said, he's a drug addict. He's doing it. After that, he calls them up and asks, they tell him he has to come in. He says, I'm phobic. Because where we can, with Paul, after he's busted, go back to Paul. His wife comes home, and she realizes that he cheated on her. And he doesn't deny it, just stands there and goes, you bastard, you cheated on me. Before this, with Justine, when she goes back to the liquor store, all of a sudden, Donna shows up and follows her and then attacks her, pushes her down, and Paul did tell her that they're not together. So he's not in a happy marriage. Paul's not happily married to Donna because, she's a bit controlling, and he hates that about her, and I think he even mutters the word bitch or something. So, and then Justine tells it, no, he told me you guys were not together, and she goes, liar. Pours vodka on her, and then Paul, goes to work, and his father-in-law looks at him like he's pissed off, and then he goes outside and he sees James after he told him, you leave and don't come back. So he's chasing, then James, we get that, he's basically going in to give him the information. He goes, hey, you, chases him, and he ends up back at he sees what looks like from the distance, a clown, wave to him, he goes in the tent, thinks that, which it turns out that's Gladys, and he goes and stabs, and it turns out he stabs Paul in the face, and then lets Paul know that he knows where the kids are, takes them to the house, and then Paul goes in, and later comes out, and he basically grabs them, drags them to the house. Like, we haven't learned anything this far about what's going on at Alex's home. Then we get to Alex. And this is the tragic story. Who is Gladys? Lily. She's supposed to be his great aunt. But in the movie, at one point, she's talking to the principal, and she says, no, I'm actually his mother's older sister. It's like, what? You're way too old to be his mother's sister. Which, like I said, she represents an actual parasite in the movie. And we see that when Alex does get bullied at school. He has the most tragic part of this story because he comes from an abusive home. He's bullied at school, and like I said, Justine seems to be the only one that seems to be worried about him. But his parents, they're kind of like, they're not the best parents. His father talks to him, but you can tell he doesn't really seem to give a crap about his kid. It's kind of like, they're not the best parents in the world. I mean, they are somewhat like abusive, not in the, we're going to hit you or anything, kind of like Alex is there, but they don't really give a shit about him. And they start talking about Aunt Gladys coming to live with them because she's sick and old and she has nowhere else to go. And give Amy Mannequin credit. God, she's great in the movie. So then she comes at night and moves in, and everything seems fine. And then Alex goes to school, and then his parents don't. His dad doesn't show up, so he goes home. And he comes in, he sees his parents sitting there, and they kind of talk to him. They're not moving. They're like, oh, hey. Yeah, his father talks to him, and then his mother, and then she comes in, Gladys, and she's got her, she's got a wig on, obviously, and she starts, like, being overexcited to see him, and then he freaks. He's very, like, not sure about her because he doesn't know who the hell this woman is. And then she tells him to sit down. And basically she wants him never to tell anybody that she's here. And then she basically has this branch off a weird tree she brought with herself. And she does this, cuts herself, and basically rubs it on the thing and takes it and breaks it. And there's a bowl of water in front of her. And she sits there, and the parents start stabbing themselves with a fork, and then she tosses it, and they stop. And then she tells them, if you tell anyone, tell the police, tell anyone that I'm here, I can make your parents hurt themselves, hurt each other, or turn them into cannibals. So he knows that he can't say anything. He has to act like everything's normal, and then he pours water on his father, and she makes him go to bed without food. This is what a parasite is like, and she is just really good at playing this evil character, Gladys. And throughout the movie, you see her, and she's got this out. I mean, and what makes her a parasite is that she's a sick old woman who's lived a long time and uses magic. Yeah, she has a spell that basically she can control people like a parasite would do, and she shows this to Alex and basically has Alex's parents under her control, where they sit still, they don't move. That's hard to do. That's a really hard thing for actors to sit and not move and look like they're just statues. That's really hard. So give it to the actors playing his parents, because they're like, yeah. And so yeah, it's a hard thing to do. And we see, oh yeah, and with Marcus, let's get back to Marcus, the principal. She shows up to his house. No, she shows up to his school and says that and this is where she tells the principal that she's actually Alex's mother's older sister, which isn't what we originally find out. We find out that she's actually Alex's mother's aunt. And said his parents are sick, they're staying home. She's here because she's staying with them while they're getting, And she said they're suffering from consumption. And he goes, isn't that something that happened on the Oregon Trail? Yeah. Consumption can be many things. It's also a sin. But, it's kind of what's happening to him is she's feeding off them. Yeah, that's what a parasite does. It feeds off others to survive. And then she, after, he needs to talk to the parents, to reassure that Alex is fine and would like to go to their home, but she's like, and then later shows up at their home, and she's like, yeah, Alex's father, would have no problem coming to school on Monday to talk to him. Goes, would that be fine? And he doesn't really seem. That's the problem with Andrew. Marcus, is that he doesn't just acknowledge. Oh, that'll be fine. She goes, you haven't told the authorities. And then he pulls up the stick and he's got one of his things she saw wrapped around. And what she does, all of a sudden, he goes, I'm going to call she has his husband come over, and she cuts his hair and takes it and wraps it around the branch that has and she cuts herself with it, and she's bleeding out, and then all of a sudden Marcus can't stop. And then she basically breaks and causes him to basically attack his husband and violently murder him. Oh yeah. And after that, she basically, go back to Julie's, showing that she's an alcoholic. She's in her vehicle outside Alex's home, and then falls asleep after drinking, hiding her alcoholism, and out comes someone from Alex's home, and it turns out it's his mother. She's being controlled, goes in with a pair of scissors, cuts Justine's hair, and then after that, she takes it and takes off the hair after he basically pounds his husband's face in, wraps Justine's hair around it, and then sets him off to go kill her. Okay. And that's where we come back to the gas station, and and then as he's chasing after her, she's driving away, he's chasing after her, he gets hit by a vehicle. Turns out it's Donna Morgan. She's freaking out because she just ran over Andrew Marcus, and then they start talking. He realized she did not have anything to do with it, and this is where the title of the movie, it's like Gladys weaponizes people like a weapon. That's what this ability with breaking the stick and making Marcus go after Justine, she can turn people into weapons. That's what the title means. And so, and they decide they've got, and he shows her the video of the kids, and then she points out the circle, that's where Alex's home is. So they're going to go to Alex's home, and oh yeah, then they see the cop. They go, should we go in? Should we wait? The end of this movie, I'm not going to tell you because you should see it. It's, yeah. But there's after everything happened, there's another narration explains what happened that, essentially because of that, Gladys's control over his parents, they still have to be taken care of. Alex is now in foster care. Most of the kids, the longer she has you, and she brought the kids so that she could feed off their energy. You can see that she's sucking the life out of the children, and it's making her healthier. And that's why, why she has the kids, why she took them so that she could actually use them. Since she says this when Alex talks to her, he comes in her room, she's obviously very old and sick and everything, and tells him, no, the hospital won't be able to help. What's wrong with me? She thought his parents would fix her, but he needs her classmates. And then they would probably help, and then she could go home. She agrees. If she gets better, she'll go home, leaving his family alone. That's how the kids end up in Alex's home. She's using them to keep her to make herself healthier. She needs them to feed herself, because that's what parasites do. They feed off others. And that is part of the theme of the movie, and that's why she has the kids. She's feeding off their youth to make herself healthier, and you see how it's having an effect. It's making her more joyous, happy. You see it when, she talks to people after, with Alex, she's sick and everything, but when later she's wearing a wig and hiding the fact that she's old, and yeah, she seems energetic because of the children. So the end of the movie is funny, but yeah, this whole movie's about, several things. People with substance abuses, parasite relationships, like, with James, he's a parasite in the fact that he feeds off others to feed his habit, his addiction. It's kind of like Justine, her addiction is alcohol, and for Archer, it's control. He needs to be in control. He doesn't like not having control, and the fact that he doesn't tell his son he loves him, and the girl's narration is some of the kids started talking. Because the less time she has control over you, the sooner you come out of it. Like with what happens to Archer when he attacks Justine, and then basically what happened, not giving anything in the ending away. Yeah, and essentially, yeah, he based Alex on himself in the fact that he came from an alcoholic family. So the themes are there. It is a horror movie. It's a drama. It's a mystery. It's so well done. It's like they're saying that 2 hours and eight minutes. I think actually it's shorter than that. It doesn't feel long, and it's well constructed that you understand the characters. They're all flawed. And you feel the most for Alex, because he's sort of put in this position where he has to act a certain way, or else Gladys could kill his parents. So yeah, and it is a very much like a parasite, and they do. Like I said, she asks what's a type of parasite, and one of the students says tapeworm, and then Andrew and his husband are sitting there watching this fungus parasite that takes over the host and basically makes do what it wants, and then it basically has these things come out of the body, so it controls. Yeah, and that's essentially what Gladys does. She's a parasite, and that makes the movie actually far more kind of uncomfortable when you think about that. It's kind of like when you watch together that the idea that you have no control over what's going on. And I bet you that Alex's parents know what's going on. They cannot do anything. They're being totally controlled, and just like with the kids. And that's another, these children, 17 kids that go missing, they don't move at points. And you see them, and Alex is feeding them, and it's like the fact that these kids stayed perfectly still and didn't move, and wow, what these kids are. hell, they have futures in acting. I mean, yeah, and everybody's fantastic. And this is a great role for Alden Ehrenreich. Yeah, because he's been in some shit. So this is actually a really good role for him to play. Everybody's great in it. I highly recommend it. So yeah, it doesn't seem that long of a movie. It says 2 hours and 8 minutes. It does not feel that long because the pace in the movie is really well. Like I said, I'm not giving the ending because when you see it, you're just like, oh, okay. I didn't give you everything. I'm just explaining what the idea of this movie is and what Zach Krager has said. And I understand because I came from 2 alcoholic parents. So, yeah, this is Gilgamesh. I will talk to you later. Bye.